So I wanted to make sure we had plenty of time for questions from you to our panelists. So I'll tell you what, if you can give me the question, I'll repeat it, and then you'll let me know who to direct it to. So any questions, comments?
I guess unless it goes up and I'll answer it all. What's this process program called?
So what's this process program called? The program that was put together by the Lutherans is called Healthy Congregations. And if you go to the CERG website, CERGUA.org, under programs, there's a Healthy Congregations tab that you can learn about it. And what we do is we publish all of the Healthy Congregation programs that are open and available. So as my understanding is that we're going to schedule some in St. Lawrence in the coming year or so. And also just read your district newsletter. It's always a good thing to do. The St. Lawrence newsletter that comes out, if you don't get it already, let them, visit the website, but anyway, that's where you can find out more about it. Any other questions? More questions? Leah.
I was Leah from Albany, and I guess, our congregation is kind of stuck without start another program. We're a threshold congregation. We're looking at rewriting our mission statement. We have a lot of stuff going on. We're working on worship with Reverend Tandeka. And I just wonder, and we do have a lot of sensibility in our congregation about how to treat each other. It's just not articulated. But we will say to one another, we'll concerned about maybe we're triangulating here a little bit. You should probably go to the person with whom you have a problem. Okay, so yeah. And those of us who are in the know keep saying that, and then hopefully, other people are avoiding doing that, at least around us. So, but my question is, is there a way to bring this to the congregation, dare I say, without doing a whole full-on program, because there's some resistance about, another program. Is there a way that it can be brought into like small group ministry or some sort of leadership thing? And what I keep hearing from people is, we're doing leadership development instead of a pledge drive. What does that look like? Because we talk about that too. So I was just wondering, is there a way to integrate this in the work of your congregation through the leadership, maybe through leadership development?
Sorry if it's not a direct answer to your question, because it's a tough one, but you'd be surprised how much stuff is in the program. To have 25 people in your congregation learn all that stuff. Triangulation most people know about. Field dynamics, family dynamics, there's so many different concepts. I don't know if there's a way to water it down and distill it, for an easier exposure. But the benefits of the commitment, and oh, by the way, the weekends are fun. To interact with your fellow congregants. By the way, it was fun. There's just so much stuff. My initial reaction is there's so much stuff that we learned. HC people of Syracuse, am I right? There was so much that we learned in the program. That's what it took. That's what it took.
I'd just like to add to that remember, it's a way of looking at things from the 30,000-foot level. So it's a way of, well, in our case, really reintegrating our various pieces with one another. Like, I think many congregations, our RE program sort of feels like they're out there by themselves and nobody cares. And we sort of feel like, well, that's RE, they're out there by themselves. And so it was a way of bringing all the disparate pieces together so that the conversations that are taking place outside of that, the other groups that are working, it really helped us to integrate, to understand one another. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It doesn't go on that long. And, and really, at the end of it, you're really like, oh my God, don't you think you're just like, I learned so much. How come? Because because I was laughing the whole time.
We did ours over one long weekend, right? Two?
So we did ours over 2 long weekends, and it's a lot of material to cover in that time. Yeah, it was exhausting. And I don't know how I feel if that would be the best way to do it again. But I do remember that, and I spoke about this earlier, that it's difficult to distill it down to just a few concepts. I was able to identify to a handful that I was able to take and apply immediately. And I'll tell you, there were people, we had about 25 people too, right? 20? So we had about 20 people, and there were people active in that group that were anxious presence, that, you know, that we needed to be practicing a lot of this work. And so it was good for us from that standpoint, because we had a lot of work to do.
Do it as a cluster.
What did we do? In Albany, when you came to Albany, was that a taste?
That was the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, we did it. Never mind.
It was a different experience at Albany than it was at Binghamton.
Isn't it always?
Yeah, it's always. I mean, at Binghamton, we're going to do a refresher, just a one-night kind of refresher so that there are ways to just do bits and pieces of it. And I'm going to look to, okay, here's my commercial. We have an online, on-demand learning platform that we're constantly adding things to, and I'm hoping to get, you know, hopefully even this video on there, but some of the Smart Church stuff on there and available too. So, and the other thing is Harvest the Power has a lot of system stuff in it, so there's modules in there. Addie?
I was just going to say, I think we recently, just last weekend, had our board retreat, and a couple of us who had taken the Healthy Congregations workshop, and then a kind of a train-the-trainer thing that Connie offered online, presented pieces, like key pieces, to the board, because we had a lot of incoming board people who hadn't been there. And it wasn't so much like we felt like, you know, it was comprehensive. We felt like we could take it to the board in modules, and also the program council, like, you know, maybe every few months present another piece of it. But the other thing that I think that helps is, just like anything, anytime you're trying to change, make a culture change, or make this part of what we do and who we are, is to have it come up in all different ways wherever possible. And so really what we did was we gave them a little taste of it, and then we're offering, Renee's going to be there next week to offer some pieces of it, with the idea that you'll get some of it and you'll say, this is really valuable, and now if somebody else offers the full program, or if we offer the full program again, people will say, yes, I want to be part of that, I want to take that. So I think it's good to offer it in little bits and pieces wherever you can, so that people know what it means when we say Smart Church, and then would be more willing to commit to invest the time into taking the full thing.
It's also in the ULTI, our leadership school, it's one of the the most recent ULTI, we didn't do it so much, but we decided that that's one of the threads that will show up in all the leadership schools. So if you send somebody to leadership school, or better yet, send a team to leadership school, they'll get a little bit of this as well. So, other questions or how?
I was just curious, it sounds like, Jim, when you did it here, it was just your church, or were people from the memorial invited?
No, that would have been weird. For our
That was weird for us.
for our situation.
We had 5 churches, and so I'm just trying to imagine how it would be like if it's just for one congregation. And in Binghamton, you also just did Binghamton?
We were just one church, but we had invited others, and we had some folks that were planning to attend, but had some last minute changes. But we would have been. I want to say too that I don't feel like we missed anything by doing it over the 2 weekends. I think that we were in different places. You two were in different places than I think Binghamton was. We were involved in the threshold program, and this was to enhance that, where you guys were in a place where you were coming out of a crisis.
We also had something going on every single other weekend. We couldn't do it for this month.
Well, we had a lot of homework in between books
churches have anxious times. There are a lot of different drivers for anxiousness. And I don't want to say that ours was unusually, especially anxious, but we were healing from a process. And so I think it made sense to just let us do that thing. It may be that our HC process, everybody thinks they're special, right? But it may be that our process was kind of unique because it was dealing with our personal. I mean, we do a lot of stuff with May Memorial. We do a lot of programming with May Memorial, but this didn't seem to be something that we would want to share.
I think just because of the cost, it was easy for us. Our congregation only ended up sending 5 people, but we could sort of piggyback onto what Buffalo was doing. I'm not sure if we could have pulled it off. We would have gotten 30 people from our own congregation.
Yeah, so we do pay attention to try to keep the costs as low as possible, and those of us who are full-time staff, we're basically free. We're being funded by your district dues and UUA dues. So a lot of it depends on the timing and stuff of the consultants. Where we have adjunct consultants, then we need to cover their mileage and things like that. So that's part of it. But to Jim's point also, if it's like, for those of us who've been in therapy, there's group therapy, there's one-on-one therapy, and sometimes a congregation just needs to be alone with their own stuff, and they're not going to be able to engage as deeply if they have company in the room, if that makes sense.
So most of the time it's offered as one congregation?
Well, most of the time it's several congregations, but if the congregation is dealing with something that's a major event in their history that's affected them deeply, then we would recommend that the congregation do it by themselves, or do maybe a session or 2 by themselves, depending on what the situation is. It's not, we try to not make it one size fits all. I guess that's another thing, and I'm sure if I were to come into either Buffalo or here, they would get a different flavor just because, I would present it differently than Karen and Kathy would. So, but the basic core concepts are there. And there's books too, I should mention, that are available. If you, again, go to the CERG website. I basically try to download everything that's in my brain onto the CERG website or on my blog. So that's my goal. Anyway, other questions?
Karen Rocco here. I wanted to invite Chris also to comment that we have the recipient of a generous grant from the New York State Convention of Universalists to help fund healthy congregation workshops in New York State, so the Metro New York District and the St. Lawrence District, particularly for small congregations. So that is coming up. We're thinking the spring in mind.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot going on now, so we're going to be investigating small congregations who are interested. If there's, the grant is for small congregations, but if there's a mid-size that's, kind of on the border, that we'll talk about that. But there's going to be a little bit of cost, I guess, some food and materials, but it's basically covered by the grant.
And I've been involved in the Healthy Congregation Smart Church at several locations. Albany, which was a threshold congregation plus a whole cluster. Binghamton, which was a threshold congregation. Here in Syracuse, which was a special contractual for us customized. And then in Buffalo, that cluster. So, and everyone has been very different because it's taken that material but made it especially relevant to what's going on in those congregations. So you've really gotten the best.
I should mention, Joe Van Biesler did a long weekend over President's Day weekend for a cluster of small congregations down in West Virginia. So they all just came to a retreat center and did the whole thing in a high
octane.
High octane. High octane. Other questions? We've got time for a few more before, I'm gonna make sure you get a break before the 3 o'clock.
Do you want to mention your threshold congregations? You're going to be working with some threshold.
Threshold congregate?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no new ones in St. Lawrence this year. We are having, the Threshold Congregation Program is for congregations that are basically healthy congregations that get a little bit of extra support from the district. We help them develop a growth plan, not just growth in numbers, but the 5 types of growth. If you want to hear about that, go to the CERG YouTube page. Mark Bernstein has a great video about the different kinds of growth. But we're going to be accepting applications for our next class of threshold congregations coming in. It'll probably be up within the next 2 weeks. So if you're interested in the program, check the CERG website. Again, that's CERGUUA.org. And I actually have some business cards that I can hand out at the end if somebody's interested in the website. It's on there. But we certainly encourage you to apply. There is a requirement that you have a high level of giving to the district in the UUA because it's being funded out of those dues. So, yeah, but it's a good motivation to get yourself up to fair share. So, any other questions for our panelists? You can email me anytime. This is the time you get to talk to them.
I know that there's at least 2 in the room. Can we acknowledge the Healthy Congregations Smart Church facilitators? At least the 2 that I know that have helped us so much, Kathy McGowan and Karen McBracco.
Transformation happens, it starts right here. And that's what, I've been a witness of. It was engagement with the issues and with each other. And so every one of these folks really took risks and together walked.
Yeah, there was an openness and trust in the process of the participants and the congregations that got the most out of the program. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm almost ready to ask for an amen. I'm getting the nods, We're in the room. Other questions of our panelists?
I have one question. Okay. You said small congregation. What is a small congregation?
Around 100 or less at worship.
Yeah, small congregations definitely can benefit from the program. Part of it is learning about our relationships and how we there's a tension between intimacy and closeness and cutoff, and how to manage that tension between, being close to one another but not too close, but also not too far away. So there's a lot about managing it. And in small congregations, they're very intimate because there's so few of you. You know everybody, and it's like living in a small town in some ways. So it's especially good for small congregations. And you notice when they leave, Yeah, that's part of it too. Some people don't like the large congregations because they're not known, in the same way that you are in the small congregations. So, yes.
I just wanted to add, if there's some confusion, we have 2 congregations who did it sort of on their own, whether they intended to or not, or intentionally because they needed to, and we did it as a cluster on Gesture and Hella because she was part of ours. We spent a lot of time together, but we broke out as congregations. So it's an opportunity for you to get to know other churches and other congregations, but also to work on your own stuff in a safe atmosphere. So it's not like you know, you imagine blurting out stuff about your congregation in an atmosphere where you might as well be standing in the middle of the city or something. I mean, it's a mixture, and it's handled very well, and there's a variety of exercises. So it's not the same thing every time. There's group work and then there's small group work. So again, it's just not as if you're like showing stuff that you don't want to show about your congregation.
Renee, you said the 5 parts of growth that membership is only 1. What are the other 4?
There's organic growth, which is sort of the systems of your congregation and your governance and that sort of thing. There's incarnational growth, so how you are in the world. So, you know, you have the fracking issues down in Bradford County. Other congregations have ways of how they are in the world. There's, let's see, maturational growth, so spiritual deepening, that sort of thing. And you can tell I don't have to study because I've got the notes, right? Numerical. Associational growth, so our connections among congregations. So those are the.
Good thing this isn't a quiz, huh?
You know, Einstein said don't memorize anything that you can look up, so that's
With Google, we don't have to memorize anything?
That's true. Actually, I'm absolutely flabbergasted whenever I walk into a congregation that's been to Mark Bernstein's 7 workshops, because I swear he must drill them, because everybody in those congregations knows the 5 types of growth in a way that I obviously don't. So I'm going to just give you a chance for last words, and then we'll break, and we'll meet back in here at 3 o'clock if there's... Oh, I'm sorry, Dave, did you? Okay. You sure? Because we have time.
Well, I had a question for the Buffalo experience. Did the healthy congregations work there involving a bunch of congregations? Does that result in strengthening of the cluster of West England? Or is it too early to tell? Or?
It has not. I think that we all would have liked that to have been an outcome, but it turned out that everybody had a lot of their own work to do, I think, and maybe if we did a refresher sometime after we have a settled minister and all the other congregations. Was that your sense, Helen?
You know, for me it has, just because
Helen was in it with us.
Just very informally, I became Facebook friends with people in various congregations, and so we comment on each other's stuff now. And some of them subscribe to our church's Facebook page, and there's a little bit more contact. I feel like if I have a question, I know, you know, the board president, probably the former board president in Niagara Falls, right. Or, you know, so I can easily contact someone. It's not like picking up the phone and calling the office administrator. You know, so it has resulted personally in some closer relationships, which is a start.
But it's not like we're going on picnics together yet. We will.
And I think part of that's because healthy congregations is kind of like going to the gym, where, you know, playing a game of volleyball would be more where the kinds of relationships that are forward-looking might happen. So I think it might be a good foundation. Does that make sense? I mean, we had some fun, there's fun activities, but there's something about building something together rather than, you know, looking at our own systems. It's that outward-looking thing that I think helps groups bond a little more. That was just from my experience. So, final words? Do you have any? I didn't ask them to prepare anything here, so we'll...
Oh, yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, we have that. Anything else you want to say, Jeff? Okay, so we have a little treat here.
I couldn't not recite this. Everything that I said, you could put to a Dr. Seuss poem. It kind of reflects some of the spirit of the Healthy Congregations program that we went through. So, in the spirit of Dr. Seuss, with special credit to anybody that can identify the 2 Dr. Seuss books that this was primarily based on. Special credit, see me afterwards. The healthification of our congregation. Something was wrong at First U Syracuse. It seemed as though people had run out of juice. Visitors came to check out our community, but they quickly moved on. There was no continuity. Our church had more issues than we'd ever seen. Meetings were challenging. People were mean. Some people left after all they'd been through, but some couldn't bear to forsake First UU. The troubles we had were of more than one kind. Some came from ahead, and some came from behind. And we tried best we could to keep running the church, but we struggled and stalled. We fell into a lurch. We practically almost had given up hope when Connie Goodbread called out, "Here, grab the rope." We wondered out loud, what could this mean to us? Could this lead to a healthier future for fuss? Some thought the rope would just lead to more pain. We'd been there before. We don't want to refrain. But others saw more than a dangling rope. Our options were limited. Some called it hope. So we grabbed and we climbed. We gave it our trust. And we trusted each other. And the rope didn't bust. We saw where we were, and we saw where we'd been. Places we'd rather not visit again. And the people that pulled us up showed us some things. They talked and they listened. They made us all sing. But the best thing they taught us to help us get better, we all sound the best when we all sing together. So after our sessions of learning and sharing, and laughing and eating, and thinking and caring, Kathy and Karen have bid us farewell. Maybe for them, we're a story to tell. The program is over. We're now on our own. But UUs are thankfully never alone. We'll always have troubles. We'll maybe get bit in the soft cushioned pews on the place where we sit. But now we are ready. We'll know what to do, for we all care deeply about First UU. Yeah.